Recently, I got to check out this cool, really personal movie by director Jarrett Martino. Donna, or the longer title, Donna, Stronger Than Pretty, is the story of a woman whose life sends her on a path she never would have chosen for herself. The titular character Donna is played by Kate Amundsen. Like all of us, she lives her life guided by the experiences she grew up with. Unfortunately, the time and the place she grew up, 60s, 70s, a little bit in the 80s New York City, weren't the most forward-thinking areas for independent women. The movie opens on a very young Donna coming home from school with good news. She walks into a fight between her parents where her mother is kept down by an overbearing husband. The husband, Donna's father, isn't an outright villain. He's not beating the hell out of the mom. A lot of his shortcomings were likely from his own upbringing and limited experiences in a different time. The short opening scene does a good job of fairly setting the stage and giving the audience a primer on what's to come. Donna grows up, trying not to become her mother. She meets Nick, played expertly by Anthony Ficco. Nick seems different than the guys that Donna's used to meeting. The two start a relationship, and before too long, they're married. Unfortunately, the mask Nick wears begins to slip. The more it slips, the worse things get for Donna. Her life starts to fall apart, and despite it being picturesque on the surface, she's miserable. She needs to make a choice, live with it, or dig deep and do something about it. Donna, the movie, not the woman or the character, doesn't deliver many surprises, and you'll likely have a good idea of the major story beats just by hearing my spoiler-free synopsis. The writers, director, and cast of this movie don't let that stop them from delivering a very engaging story. The time periods captured as Donna grows up and the story unfolds are captured amazingly. Recreating old New York City cannot be an easy endeavor, especially when you aren't someone like Martin Scorsese who kind of gets whatever he wants, at least I'd assume so. The costuming, soundtrack, and even some of the slang follows through defining the given era without ever feeling like a parody or that the production was trying too hard to cram it all in there. Kate Amundsen shoulders the majority of the movie, and she does a great job with the emotional beats. Her character has very high highs and very low lows. There were some moments while watching that I found myself questioning why her character would do something or make a certain decision rather than another one, or how she didn't see future events coming based on what we were given as an audience. But knowing this is all based on a true story, and the woman who lived that story had a large hand in telling this on-screen version, not to mention her son was the director, it put all those questions to rest for me. We've all looked back on moments in our life and questioned why we acted in a certain way or why we didn't see obvious tells. That's just living your life. Amundsen isn't the only one in the cast to do heavy lifting. Anthony Ficco walks a fine line of being the scumbag Nick really turns out to be, while also being able to turn on the charm so the audience sees what Donna, at least at some point, saw in the man. The more Donna sees her situation, the more we see Nick's real face. It's paced out pretty well for the movie. Speaking of pacing, Donna does run a little long. I don't mean to diminish the real woman's struggle by saying a 2-hour representation is too much for a story, but there are some scenes that retread well-known territory or overstay their on-screen welcome just a little too long. It's nothing egregious. I wasn't fast-forwarding the movie to see how it all turned out. Just shaving some things down and tightening some things up could really help the pacing and define the structure of the screenplay. At the top of this video, I said that Donna was a very personal movie. Director Jarrett Martino developed the movie alongside his mother and co-writer of the movie, Donna Marie Martino. Not only was it eye-opening to know that Donna is based on a real woman, but Martino, the director, gives her some screen time at the end of the movie to be herself. The real-world Donna appearing on screen as the narrative wraps up was pretty powerful. It was brought tighter into the movie when Amundsen and the real woman she portrayed got to spend some time together on camera. You see a real bond between them. The real moment at the end of all of this, and the bond between the actor and the person she's portraying, makes all of the smaller issues you may see with this movie evaporate. It becomes a lot more personal. You feel a lot more invested. Donna debuts on video February 23rd. I recommend you check this one out. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more new movie coverage and interviews. We have so much lined up, I can't post fast enough. You aren't going to want to miss out. Remember to listen to So Is Her Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. So Is Her Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. SoIsHerPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments and get a hold of us on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. Thanks.